let's take a look at some tried and true guitar tricks that you can start doing today that's going to take your blues and your rock playing up to the next level. So stay tuned. Welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I am Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. Well, thank you for joining me today. Today is a deep dive. And what that means is I'll be talking about stuff. I'll be talking about, in particular, the main topics from this week's lick lesson. So make sure, if you want to watch the lesson first, if you're looking for the lesson, I have the link provided for you right here. It's either in the description, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can just click the screen. But this is our audio podcast, and this is where we dive deep. We work on the things that actually make us play a little bit better. And I found 9 times out of 10, communication and breaking down barriers and just saying, hey, there's a different way of doing this. There's a different way of thinking about this. Really, really moves people forward a lot more than just learning lick after lick after lick. So I want to talk about the substance that's in the licks that we did today. So head on over there, learn the licks. If you're in the car later on when you get home, if you've never done it before, head over to the Play Guitar Academy YouTube channel and try out these licks. We have 5 here. What do we have? We have 5 make your pentatonic licks sound advanced. So we're taking easy pentatonic scales. You all know that scale pattern. And we're doing some things to it that are going to make it sound planned. What does an advanced player sound like? Someone who's prepared, who understands how to use these things to get a good effect. So we did, lick number 1 was sequences. Lick number 2 is a half step behind the chord tone. Number 3 is minor third to major third. Number 4 is chromatic, and number 5 is 1-string licks. I'm going to go through all these today. It's going to be a lot of fun too. I love spending time talking about these things. And, tricks. What are tricks? They sound like something that's easy, right? Oh, it's a trick. It should be easy. But it gets you more than what you put into it. And these tricks can polish the way you sound. You might start to do these and you might start to think, why haven't I ever done this before? So in the video, I played this lick for lick number 1. What do you notice about that? There's some accents going on. 2 different feels of sequences. Now, sequences are where we break the scale up. We may go up and back. We may skip notes. We may, in this one, we go back a note and then return to it. That's 3 notes. Then the next time we do it again, and then we do it again, and we do it again. But that 3 feel sounds great when we go into the next one where it's. That's more on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very even. So we have an odd feel and then an even feel. And the mixing of sequences is the key here. Anything that you do, if you do too much of it, it's going to start to sound stale, especially if you're improvising. Well, it sounds like they just know that one thing and they're playing it all over again. So being able to go back and forth between triplet feel, even though this is 16th notes, we're accenting every third note. Bop, 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 bop. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then on the way back, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Right on the beat is the accents right there. So understanding sequences. Now, how could you take sequences and use it in your playing? Well, put it into your practice in place of your scale work. This is basically what we do when we play the scales. Just go up and back. Oh, I can do that. Now let's move on to the next pattern. sounds great, but what if I did this? Much more interesting. And I'm getting ideas for it. I might get ideas for a lick from that. I might even get an idea for a song from that. So this is a melodic device. And what's really nice about sequences, and you've heard me say this before, say you can't remember what you want to do, or say you don't have any ideas, you're just not feeling it. Well, you could just do a sequence, and maybe that would lead somewhere really nice there. So that was lick number 1, sequences. And I highly advise you to start maybe putting some of that into your practice. But let's take a look at lick number 2, and that is half step behind the chord tones. Now, all of these are in a blues setting, and the chord that's you're mostly playing over is an E dominant 7th chord here. And basically what I've done in this one is I played a half step behind each chord tone. So if my E dominant 7, the notes are E, G sharp, B, and D. Did you know that before I said it? E, G sharp, B, and D. That would be great if you could quiz yourself on those things. E, G sharp, B, D, E, G sharp, B, D, E. What I did was I would go up the scale, and then I would surround the note. I would go back behind it. It's like I went up a scale tone and then went behind it a half step. Now the half step is not, oh wait, there we go. That half step is not in the scale. It's a wrong note. But it leads up. It sounds like it wants to resolve upwards, doesn't it? Now, does that sound wrong to you? So if I'm... Now, those are 2 really wrong notes, and they were featured. They were let ring there. So each one, I was on the E string, went to the 11th fret and resolved to the 12th fret. And then on the B string, did the same thing, 11th fret to the 12th fret. This is the same thing as when you take a chord and you take the whole chord, a bar chord of some sort. I'm playing an E9 chord here. And then you take it back a fret. Shouldn't work. Totally wrong, right? But it wants to resolve back to where it was. It's kind of a time, a thing to fill up time. You're still in E, right? You're still playing over the E chord. But you got a little interest going on. You're taking the chord a half step out and bring it in. This is the single note version of that. Can you hear that? You hear the note that's out. But it's so close to the right note that it sounds like it works. This is playing outside. Now we get to the next part of this lick. Now we have the thing in pentatonic, minor pentatonic, when we play in blues, that there's a rub. We love the sound of the minor pentatonic scale, but it doesn't work perfectly because the chord that we usually play over in blues is a dominant 7th chord with a major third. So our scale is minor third, but our chord has a major third. We get one of those sounds in there, but it's disguised in all the other notes of the chords and everything. And we kind of like it. It gives it kind of a rub to there. So when we went down to this third part of the lick, the idea about this is a half step behind the chord tone, not the scale tone. The scale tone's already a half step away from the chord tone. So I didn't really leave the scale. So that's 14A to 12 and then back to the minor third, and it resolves to the major third nicely. And this is the one, that you've used in a lot of different songs. And I just ended it with a little bit of a little blues lick there. What do you think about that? What does that sound like to you? it definitely gets your attention. And, you know, there's so many times, have you ever played a solo where you're playing and playing and playing and it just doesn't seem like anything you do is creating something listenable, right? Well, what this does is it forces you to, you're going as wrong as you can get, a half step away, but it's so close to the right note. You can go, and I would suggest you practice that too. I know you've done this. I know you've done a half step away and then into the chord tone. So how would you do that? This I was doing on the back side of pattern 1. So you have your 1 4, 1 3, 1 3, 1 3, 1 4, 1 4, all those ones across there. Every time I play one, I would go back a fret and then come into it. That would be a good way to practice that, because that's kind of like an E minor 7th arpeggio. All those first notes there. Actually, it's an E minor 11. You do them all, right? So cool stuff. Cool stuff. The next one was minor 3rd to major 3rd. That's this sound, right? It sounds sad for a second, and then all of a sudden you hammer on that major 3rd, and it's happy. And if you play blues or play rock and you haven't tried this, I suggest that you try this. Find out what the 3rd is. So in this, if you're playing in minor, this is E minor at the 12th fret. On your G string at the 12th fret, that's your minor 3rd. And all you would do is hammer on to the 13th fret. Okay? Sad, happy. Isn't it interesting how one fret takes you from as sad as you could be to as happy as you can be? Just one fret. We can't get any happier. We can't get any sadder. Just one fret. There's no in between. So we have to come up with all other ways of making something, adding some complexity to these sounds, because we're as happy as we can get, but sometimes we're not like always that happy. You know, sometimes it's kind of happy. If that's what you're going for, there's other things that we can do to do that. But here, now this is a common lick too. Oh, I wanted to say too, one of the comments on there was asking about, they said that no one ever talks about the sounds that they get, how to get a blues sound. So for this, what I did was I started off here with a clean Fender sound. I'm using my Boss IR200. It's on the twin combo setting. And I use an impulse response that has like a deluxe reverb sound. So it's the sound of the speakers of a deluxe reverb. And to me, it sounded pretty nice. Gets a nice clean up sound. So sometimes I'll use this compressor to even things out a little bit. But in this instance, to get a bluesier sound, I have another pedal in front of it. This is a tube screamer. And I have all of my knobs at about 12 o'clock. So I'm getting a little bit of distortion from the tube screamer, but I've got some level on it too. But what that does is if you play a clean Fender sound, it's what's called scooped. It doesn't have a lot of mids, which makes it sound nice and clean, spanky. That kind of sound. But the tube screamer has a lot of mids in it, so it fills it out nicely. It's a very bluesy lead sound without it being too much distortion. A very clean sound. So if you have any kind of a scooped clean sound, bring the mids down a little bit, put a tube screamer or a tube screamer clone, a cheap one. You can get a Behringer one for not much money. You can get a pretty nice blues sound that's not distortion, but still has a lot of sustain and a lot of mids in it to fill up that clean sound. Okay, so we're in the minor 3rd to major 3rd. And the reason I wanted to do this one was not to bring attention to the first one, the Johnny B. Good type sound there. A lot of people will use that, but they always use it in one place. There's minor 3rds and major 3rds all over the neck of the guitar. And as we go down, So I'm going tonic, flat seventh, fifth, blue note to the fourth, and I play a kind of a ghost note, an open A string that I'm muting, but the last two notes. Do you hear that? Sad to happy. There it is, sad to happy. We end it right there. It's a really nice way to end it. It really sounds advanced when you do that. It sounds like you're in control. You know what the chords are, and you're picking the notes that are going to feature those chords really nicely. So when we get to chromatic now, this was a lot of fun. Have you ever messed with chromatic tones, passing tones, linking scale tones together with the other notes that shouldn't be there? And we did a little bit of that earlier today. So here, my idea for this one was to go through just a regular blues lick, something that's not really special, you know? There's nothing really special about that one. And I thought, well, I'm going to show how using chromatic notes in something like that can really make it shine. So we started with the E, we get to the minor third, the G, the fourth, which is the A, back to the minor third, back to the fourth, to the fifth, which is the highest note that will go with this one. And that's all the notes. Then I just do them again in different orders. And now what I'm going to do is try to connect some of those. In particular, on the G string, the minor third, I'm going to keep going up. So I start E, and I'm going to go up. Minor third. Now a half step above that, we know that from the last one, is the major third. Half step above the major third is the fourth. Half step above that is the sharp four. That's our blue note. That's the sharp four, flat five. And then to the fifth. So that's the spread that we had before. But now what we're doing is connecting them between the minor third and the fifth. And that works really nicely. We have strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. So we're pretty much going strong, weak, back and forth like that. It makes it sound really nice. And I thought that sounds so nice. Why not do it 2 times, right? So now, this time I wanted to go back up chromatic, but I started at the major third this time. So major third, fourth, sharp fourth to 5. So the first one started from the tonic. This one starts at the major third. And then we're going to end it with our favorite minor third to major third to root. And finally, lick number 5 was one string lick. So we've done some of those on the podcast before. You can do legato on one strings really nicely, but what happens to a lot of us is when we play in a certain scale pattern, sometimes our licks start to sound stale. Sometimes we just do the same things over and over again, and getting out of that, you know, it's just like anything. If you say you work at home and you're at home all the time, sometimes you just got to get out and be in a different place, and it makes you think differently and play differently in this instance here. So we have 5 3s. This is all on the B string. So I figured out, well, what are my pentatonic licks up and down the B string? So we're in the key of E. So an open B string, that's in pattern 1, E. Pattern 2 is our 3rd fret and 5th fret. Then we slide up to pattern 3 on the B string, pattern 4 on the B string, pattern 5 on the B string, pattern 1, and then pattern 2. So we start from low to high. Now I'm doing it legato, but you could I'll pick everyone. So that's a nice building sound, and you can hear it as it goes up that one string. It gets more intense as it goes, which you wouldn't get that if you were in one. I couldn't do it with the open B notes, but that's kind of what it's like. But you could hear that was all in one pattern, where the other one was building and building. You could hear it moving up the guitar. So taking some time to learn your pentatonic scales up and down one string is really important for a lot of reasons. One, it's a transport. It can move you from one place of the guitar to another one. Another is it sounds different. It sounds really cool. And you can play it in a lot of different ways. You can play it legato like I was doing a little bit before, or you could pick them all, or you could just try and, sometimes when you're just moving up and down a string, it's easier to play faster than moving across strings too. So I got a lot deeper into these concepts here in the podcast than in the video, but head on over there and check it out next time you're practicing. You might want to add some of these ideas into your regular sounds. And another thing that can help you out is my Big 4 scale pattern worksheet. We're going to start busting open the fretboard. Instead of just playing in one or two patterns, we'll get used to playing all over it. That's free for you over at playguitaracademy.com/Big 4 scale worksheet. And this was a lot of fun, and I will see you next week. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you have benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcasts iTunes review. It's the best way to make sure we get this very valuable content to more guitar players around the world. Thanks again. I'll see you next week, everybody.